Hey everyone, welcome back to Topher Drives, where this week I've been living with this, the 2024 Mercedes GLA 35 AMG. And admittedly, I've never spent any time in a 35 series or any four-cylinder AMG of sorts, which means that I had no idea that they killed the GLA 45, which was the sort of crazy fire-breathing, nearly 400 horsepower entry-level little boot thing that looked just like this. But the difference was that car had a signed engine and 80 more horsepower than this GLA 35. But for 2024, this is your top choice. This is the most powerful GLA you can have. It's still an AMG. It still has all of the AMG bits. We've got adaptive dampers. We've got all sorts of aerodynamic bits on this. We've got some crazy seats inside, and it is still tuned by AMG. But instead of a hand-built engine, this just has a AMG enhanced 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, which means under the hood, we only make 302 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. Power is sent to all four wheels via an AMG 8-speed DCT, which means it is still crisp and changes gears in the way you would expect an AMG to. But I didn't really know, like I said, what to expect from this, and I'm excited to kind of take you guys along on a bit of a commute and living with video in this car to show you what it's like to daily drive this little baby AMG. So let's talk about what we have here right in front of us. This is a mountain gray over classic red spec, and this has a couple of goodies on the exterior as well. We have the AMG Aerodynamics Package, which kind of just looks like somebody stuck on the basic Forza spoiler pack. We've got this wing on the back here, which I think looks excellent. And then we also have this little front diffuser down here with flicks. So this is basically a Formula One car in my eyes, and I imagine the sort of people that buy this car think the same way. This thing starts at $56,000, but wait for it, as spec'd, this thing is pushing 74 grand, which I could not believe when I pulled the Monroney out of the glove box. And there are things that suggest that this car is still worth that price, and also some things to suggest that it certainly is not worth that price. But let's go ahead and poke around this thing. We'll show you what it looks like inside and out, and then we'll take it out on the road. We'll commute it to downtown Ann Arbor, and I'll give you my thoughts at the end on if this is a worthy buy. Now, this is still a Mercedes GLA, which means it is just the baby SUV, but we still have good amenities like a power boot with a pretty decent amount of room, a low load surface back here despite this being 4MATIC. But unfortunately, no spare wheel or even a place to put one. Underneath here, we just get a goop kit inflator. We've got some amps and other tech for our Burmester sound system, but that is all you get under the trunk floor. As far as storage solutions go back here, though, you do have a strap if you want to secure some things, and these little baby netted side pockets back here as well with outlet. You've got some places to tie things down as well. And of course, these seats fold down if you are to be transporting something large. You're able to fold them down in a 60-40 split, or you can fold the middle down independently and do a 40-40-20 if that is your thing. So still somewhat practical is what I'm trying to say. Before we jump into the back, I actually kind of want to talk about exterior design, because I think the closest thing to this and what I can think of is that, you know, like when there's a very iconic shoe, say like a Jordan 1 or something that everybody knows, and then companies decide to make one for a toddler, and it just kind of never really looks like the real thing. Kind of what I'm getting from the exterior design of this GLA, especially in AMG form with the spoilery bits and the 20-inch wheels. It just looks a little bit silly proportionally, and I think that's kind of the best way to describe it. For tires today, we have a 255/40 R20 section tire, and that is a squared setup on some pretty sticky Continental Sport contact tires. This thing grips, and it is honestly the best part about driving this is just being able to take corners at speeds you'd never expect a toddler shoe to be able to take. Let's pop the hood and show you this AMG enhanced 2-liter turbocharged engine. Of course, Mercedes hides their hood release. It's a little red lever under the dashboard. We have our little AMG roundel here on the hood, which I do like. That's a nice touch. Joy of joys, we have a hood strut, as I hope you would expect for a $74,000 hatchback. And as you can see, this is not a signed engine. The GLA 45 had a little plaque here with the signature of the person that built the motor. Let's jump in the back and see what that's like if you are commuting with some other people. These doors, they make a nice kerthunk when they shut, and the door handles have a nice weight to them as well. Classic red, which is almost an orange. It's a very, very red-orange bright color. We've got that in massive quantities there on the door panels and then in the back seat as well. I do love that they match our AMG Performance front seats, which are another favorite item in this car. We'll show you that once we get up front. But backseat room is pretty good. This is a super high ceiling architecture in this GLA. And you've got a couple of Burmester speakers behind your rear passenger's head as well. Otherwise though, back here, there's not really a lot going on. You've got some vents, which mimic the ones in front. I think those look nice. Little cubby down here with some USB-C ports, cup holders in the doors, but we don't have a fold down armrest because like I said, this acts as the 20 split in the middle, so you can fold this down individually, but there are no cup holders that come from it. So some interesting packaging back here, plenty of room. I mean, I'm 5'11", sat behind myself. I've got plenty of leg room. I could even slouch back here and I could ride in this for a while and I think be super comfortable. The seats are pretty firm, but they do feel supportive in the way that they have a bit of lumbar worked into these back seats. So that is nice. I gotta say, I know I just went on a huge spiel about materials feeling nice, but some of these Mercedes plastics are a little bit inexcusable. That door pull reminded me. And then look at the flex from this Burmester speaker grill. I mean, I'm giving it no pressure at all. I feel like I could just punch right through that. Let's take a look up front, and the door panels pretty much match the rear. We have aluminum trim to accent and complement our classic red and black color for these seats. These are the AMG Performance Plus seats. These are about a $3,000 option. In my opinion, worth every penny. Because come on, if you're getting an AMG, you got to go all the way and get the crazy bonkers looking seats. Honestly, these seats are so wild looking, I would expect them to be Euro only. So it's cool that we get them in the US. And these are multi-contour. So we have lumbar support. You can adjust these bolsters. They move in a lot of different ways, but the only physical controls you have are on the door here, which means the majority of the adjustments are in the infotainment, which is a little bit irritating. But once you get them dialed into your position, you don't really have to worry about that anymore unless you want them to give you a little mediocre massage while you're on the road. You can heat and ventilate your seats at the same time. But I mean, up front, it's pretty standard GLA minus these epic looking seats and this AMG exclusive steering wheel wrapped in Napa leather that's perforated on the sides. If you would like, you're able to get one in Alcantara instead. But if you're going to be driving this car for more than a lease term, if you're actually buying it, I would always recommend going with leather because it does hold up just that much better. All right, let's fire this thing up, see what it sounds like. Excuse me for failing to mention that this is a mild hybrid, so you don't hear a starter when this thing fires up. It kind of just begins with that 48-volt hybrid. Now, this car doesn't give you the option to toggle your exhaust modes, but it does kind of pipe in some engine noise. Another interesting thing about this car, no soft limiter, which means you can just rev it to the moon and get some wild turbo noises and a couple pops and burbles from the exhaust on the down rev, but they aren't consistent, which is what I like. They're a bit more of a surprise and a treat for the driver. I mean, what other German car in 2024 allows you to rev to 6,000 RPM while you're in park? I was shocked to find that out. Let's show you what else we have here on the interior. Well, we have this continuous cluster and infotainment display. I'm pretty sure Mercedes started this trend. I mean, everybody's kind of copied this now, but Mercedes infotainments and everything have looked like this for, geez, it seems like going on 10 years now with the W22 2 S-Class, I think, had this. And it's otherwise pretty corporate Mercedes, but being that it's a GLA, there isn't a ton going on in here. We've got this pretty decent split folding armrest that is very deep. You've got a lot of room for things, a couple of USB-C ports in there to charge your phone or wire in for CarPlay if you don't want to use the one that is front and center here on the console. 2 upfront cup holders that have little adjustments if you have a smaller cup. These little guys pop out to make your cup not tip over and spill all over your piano black and aluminum and freeze up your physical volume knob down here, as well as your parking sensor and parking camera button. Fuel economy, 24 combined, 22 city, 28 highway. I don't think I've been getting anywhere near that, to be completely honest. Ooh, these haptic touch controls do not always do what you want them to do. Over the last 124 miles, which is what I've driven this car this week, I've gotten 18.8. So not quite to the combined rating of 24, but come on, it's an AMG car. I've been doing some spirited driving in it, so I won't fully blame that on the car. I think the only thing I have left to talk about is the steering wheel, which is exclusive to AMG. We've got paddle shifters, but most importantly, we have these little toggles on the steering wheel. Right now I'm in Sport Plus, put myself back into Comfort, but we do have a number of different drive modes. You've got an individual drive mode as well, which is really nice, really customizable, down to turning it into manual mode, meaning you don't have to go over on this other circle on the left-hand side and toggle manual mode on every time. If you're unfamiliar, the way this works is you press on the actual roundel itself, and it takes you through all of your different items that you can toggle. So say I want to turn traction control off, you then hit this little guy on the left-hand side that will toggle traction off, the same to put it back on, and you can kind of switch through all of these modes. Suspension, you can put that Sport Plus. I've got mine set for Comfort. A lot going on here as far as drive modes go, which is why individual is nice, because as opposed to having to go through and toggle these every time, you flick this once to the left and it's set up exactly how you want it to be set up. You can also see your cluster in, I think, 7 different ways. You've got Super Sport, you've got Sport, which is kind of just like that, but in red. You've got Classic, which is what I prefer. You've got Understated, you've got Navigation, you've got Assistance, you've got Off-Road, and you've got Service. We've spent enough time in this parking lot. Let's get out on the road and we'll show you what this thing is like to live with. That seatbelt will now tension and hug me tight. We have a column shifter on this car. I love what Mercedes does with these. I would say they're just about perfect with calibration and placement. Really nice quality on those parking cameras. We're actually going to start in Comfort mode because I've got my individual set to manual. We won't manually shift gears just yet. Very sticky Continental, kicking up lots of rocks, but also very much gluing us to the road today. Squeaky brakes as well. Lots of signs that we are definitely still in a true AMG car. And pretty dang light steering as well at low speed. I also have to add that that cop was just recently sitting over in the area where we test spirited driving. It looks like he has departed. Which means I should be able to show you guys what this thing can do before we jump on the highway and commute it. Now, we talked earlier about how pushing $74,000 for this car seems like a big slap in the face. And in some ways, it certainly is, with some of the very plasticky materials in here and the outside not looking too differently from the sub $50,000 GLA 250. But where this thing really comes into its own, where it really starts to make sense, is when you bump it up into Sport Plus or into your custom set individual mode and start driving it like a real AMG car. It all kind of makes sense. Now, straight line speed, I will admit, not the strong suit of this car. In fact, in my opinion, I think it could use another 80 to 100 horsepower, which was, of course, the GLA 45. And I was a bit disappointed when I got into this thing because I was definitely expecting it to pull harder in a straight line. But then, oh my goodness. You throw this thing into a corner and it all kind of starts to make sense. The steering weight is excellent. The steering itself has a pretty good feel. It's precise, and even with the suspension set into comfort, you don't get an offensive amount of body roll in this thing. We're gonna go around this corner again, but this time I'm gonna put the traction control into sport, and I'm gonna put the suspension into sport as well. Actually, no, we'll go sport plus with the suspension. So this is just about as hardcore as this car gets. Zero to 60 happens in just over 5 seconds, which today, I mean, is that the most impressive thing in the world? No, and especially for a car that's, let's be honest, with any sort of options, $65,000, not really. Smoke from this Malibu. Oh, I really don't want to breathe that in. Okay, he's now spawned behind me, so we don't have to breathe in Chevrolet Malibu engine internals. Before we step out onto the highway, let's go and let's do a race start, because why not? We have the technology here. All you have to do to engage a race start is to have your gearbox set to manual, except the car will shift for you, which is a bit strange, and have your engine set to Sport Plus. And then it's just a matter of full left foot brake, hold will pop up there, mash the throttle, let go of brake. And again, winds itself out to 60, just over 5 seconds. You can then take back over manual control. And this is one of those cars that I like in the way that it's almost slow enough to be slow car fast, to where you can kind of just push it everywhere and have an absolute ball driving this thing around. But even beyond that whole slow car fast philosophy, I have fun just flicking this thing over into individual mode and changing my own gears, kind of zipping around town like a Mini Cooper in that way, to where you're just kind of like kind of just weaving traffic like a mad little Chihuahua or Yorkie, or one of those little dogs that thinks it's massive, is kind of what this feels like. So I like it in that way. It's fun to drive. I've been having a lot of fun driving it around, commuting in it, and for that reason, the value starts to make a little bit more sense here in this GLA 35. Oh, out of blinker fluid. Oh, out of blinker fluid again. Oh, what a treat it is to drive on these roads every day. Just fantastic. So in comfort mode, this 8-speed DCT behaves itself. It's very, very calm and collected, very smooth gear changes. And this was a good sort of palate cleanser from the Hyundai Sonata N-Line that I was driving earlier this week, because the DCT in that is not so good at low speeds. This one does a pretty good job. The only thing I don't love about it is it does hesitate a little bit in your initial push down into drive. You do kind of feel like you're in a manual car in neutral until you've given it about 30% throttle. But after that, it behaves exactly as intended. let's get this thing merged onto the highway and we'll let you observe our NVH. So here's where you remember this is, at the end of the day, still an AMG car. We still have 20-inch wheels. We still have some very sticky Continental tires. We still have probably somewhat of a lack of sound deadening. And all of that kind of works together to make this a pretty loud ride. You all can hear that. NVH, not very impressive. Hold on. Not only that, I'm in the comfort suspension setting and it's a bit bouncy still. It's kind of crashy, and the impact harshness and the sound over potholes is offensive. I'll just go out and say it. But it's kind of one of those things where you can't expect to get a full AMG car and have it be cozy. That's just kind of not the way these cars are. It's the same with BMW M cars. It's the same with Audi RS cars. They just aren't always the most comfortable daily drivers. And it's the same story here with this GLA 35. And that is a bit of a struggle because a small SUV like this should still be somewhat comfortable. And it begs the question, why would you choose this over the CLA 35, which has the same powertrain? It looks better, it's cheaper. I don't know. It just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me why you would go with this. The only thing I can think of is if you want to be that much different and if you want to have the silly little aero kit and look like a toddler shoe and everything else. I mean, there's an ass for every seat, and if this is your thing, it's your thing. I just struggle to make sense of it. Small adjustments on the highway do kind of send this thing flying and darting back and forth. It does have pretty quick steering still. Not always a bad thing. I mean, we did that whole circuit earlier so I could show you guys how engaging this car is and how genuinely fun it is to drive. But once you exit that and you get out onto the highway, it becomes a little bit harder to justify. I mentioned earlier, it's fun to drive in a city setting, absolutely. Slow car fast. But on the highway, it's definitely not the best thing in the world. Cruise control happens with 2 button presses, 1 button to turn it on, 1 to set your cruise control. You can adjust your adaptive cruise distance setting here on the same little haptic touch panel. I don't love these steering wheel controls, but these are consistent with every Mercedes. Our volume slider is a haptic touch control on the steering wheel, but we do still have this physical slider down here on the console, so that does help. As far as places to put things in here, there's a place down here in front, a wireless charger for your phone. You've got this tray right here in front of the armrest, but if I owned this car, I would put nothing in there because it would just drive me nuts. Let's turn our cruise control off. How is the overall comfort in here? Well, the driver's footwell is a little bit cramped. This console kind of sticks out and protrudes more than I would like it to, and it's hard. So it would be one thing if this little panel here, this aluminum panel with ambient lighting, if this was squishy and leather wrapped, I could see it being a little bit more excusable, but it is just kind of in the way. On the left-hand side, you've got a bit more room, but I don't know. The seat, oh, the seat. These are such nice looking seats and they're supportive, but I'll be honest, they're a bit hard. Would I still get them? Yes, I would, because I think they look excellent. I think they're a worthy addition to any AMG car, but on the highway, I don't know. I would love to have taken a road trip in this car because that would have given us kind of the real impressions of this thing. Anyways, though, what do you guys say we test out this Burmester sound system? right, interrupting this for a second because we have important work to do. I think a lot of this, ooh, very windy. Okay, a lot going on there. I do apologize, and we are behind a Buick Riata at this point, so I'll try not to be distracted. Let's talk about the sound system. It's okay. It's still a Burmester. There is still some good complexity, especially when you toggle on your personal sound profile. You're kind of able to customize the system to sound exactly how you want. When we started the test, it was on the personal sound profile. I then switched it to pure. It's just kind of basic setting without surround. Is it the most impressive sound system in the world? Is it the most impressive sound system even in this class? I don't really think so. I'd kind of put it middle of the road. You've got some crispy highs, you've got some good punches from the bass, but it does kind of sound hollow, which is a little bit disappointing for a car that costs this much. Let's talk about the exhaust. You get some good pops and burbles at the high range, 5,000-6,000 RPM. They aren't consistent. We didn't really get a ton going under the bridges there on our kind of exhaust little test section of the route, but it is what it is. This is just the most biblically accurate Topher Drives video today, and either you're welcome or I'm sorry, whatever, whatever you kind of prefer. Let's switch this over into my individual mode, and we'll try and engage with this GLA 35 a little bit more for the rest of the drive. I love the little turbo noises you get from this 2-liter. You do not feel the shifts from this 8-speed, but they are oftentimes audible. You don't get the distinct fart that you get from some of these DCTs, but you get a little bit of a playful noise there, which I do appreciate. In many ways, this car does kind of remind me of the old Mini Countryman JCW. That's probably the closest comparison I can give. I haven't driven the new one yet, so I'm not sure on the 25, but... And the Countryman JCW is a car that I was very fond of. And this car, if you can get over how obnoxiously loud and stiff it is in a daily setting, and you're able to set up your personal drive mode and engage with it and just laugh with it and have fun and kind of just treat it like your friend, then you can have a lot of fun in this thing. But if you're after a car that can do the whole Jekyll and Hyde thing and be comfortable and soft on a daily basis, this is not really the car for you. And this is what I'm talking about. I have fun doing a 50% throttle blast up to 40 miles an hour, changing gears manually. It's a fun car to engage with, and that's really what saves this thing, is that it's entertaining. You know, I'm able to get over some of its foibles and some of its irritating attributes because...
Caution, speed bump.
Where? I mean, thank you. But by that logic, every road in Michigan has speed bumps. I'm able to laugh with this thing, and that's kind of all that matters when it comes down to a small M car, a small AMG, a small Mini Cooper JCW. You have to be a diehard enthusiast to own a car like this. I mean, end of story. You have to really, really love this car and really appreciate it for what it is. And in that way, it makes me sad that they got rid of the 45. And I don't know if it's coming back as some sort of an e-performance thing, but I think that would have been peak GLA AMG. And after speaking with some of my friends and colleagues that have driven the GLA 45, they said that that was the car, that was the ticket, that was the way to have your GLA. I guess to kind of wrap this thing up, this is a car that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be an enthusiast spec, a car simply made for people that love driving. But my experience this week is that that is exactly what this car is made for. And if you're willing to shell out anywhere from $56,000 to $75,000 on a little entry-level AMG SUV, by all means, go right ahead. You're not going to be disappointed with the way this car drives. Yes, it's not the fastest thing in a straight line, but boy, is it fun around a corner. Boy, is it fun to engage with at low speeds. Let's see if it's at the right height to get a ticket. I think it probably is. Oh, it is. See,
Welcome.
if I were in...
Please proceed into the lot.
Thank you. If I were in the CLA 35 AMG, that probably would have been a little bit more difficult. And we can't go an entire Mercedes-Benz review without talking about this ambient lighting. Okay, that's good. Anyways, I've got this set to ultramarine. It's my favorite Mercedes ambient light color. But you can go over to the comfort tab here in our infotainment and click ambient light, and of course you have a number of different choices. Miami Rose is another very striking one, and if Mercedes is going to get one thing right, it's going to be the ambient lighting. It's on the dash, it's in the air vents, it's on the door panels, it's in the footwells. Not only do you have many different customizable colors, but this also has the multicolor animations, meaning it changes color as you go. There's another one called Red Moon. Really love this one as well. All right, guys. Well, let's wrap this up. I'll leave it up to you to decide if it's worth the price. Leave in the comments, what would you have? This? Would you have an X1 M35i? Would you have a Mini Countryman JCW? There are other cars in the segment. There are cheaper options than this, but I haven't really driven anything else that's as fun to drive. So you are paying for your dynamic experience here. Otherwise, it is definitely a little bit hard to justify price-wise. Let's put these parking cameras to the test. See if I can maneuver my way into this spot. One good thing about this is it does have such a short wheelbase. I mean, it's just such a little car that maneuverability is really nice. Parking brake is a button on the left-hand side. Did we talk about elbow comfiness? I don't think we did. Jeez, sacrilege. Very squishy split folding center armrest here in the middle. I do love the squish on that, and that's mimicked over here on the driver's door panel as well. Comfy elbows, TheTopher Drives certified for sure here in the GLA. I guess that's just about it. This has probably been a long enough video as it is, so we'll go ahead and let you guys go here. If you have any questions about the GLA 35, make sure you leave those in the comments.
Just a minute. You've forgotten your phone.
We'll give you one last look at this little guy, and we'll let you go. Had a fun few days with this thing, but I'm excited to drive some more AMG cars and see what the future holds for these things. So, cool. We're going to have the CLA 35 here in a couple weeks, so we'll be able to compare on that front as well. But as for today, that will wrap it up for the GLA 35. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.